Hi, welcome to Take 5, where we daily consider devotional thoughts from Oswald Chambers' book, My Utmost for His Highest. Today is November 5th, and the title of today's devotional is Partakers of His Suffering. But rejoice to the extent that you partake of Christ's sufferings, 1 Peter 4, verse 13. Suffering for Christ's sake must be for spiritual reasons. It's not the same as common experiences of mankind. Those like you hate your job, you don't get along with your neighbors, the car breaks down, the roof leaks, and similar events that make us feel as if we were suffering. Paul told the Philippians that they were to be in no way alarmed by their opponents, which is a sign of destruction for them, the opponent, but of salvation for you, and that too from God. For to you it has been granted for Christ's sake not only to believe in Him, but also to suffer for His sake. Christian suffering is going to be for Christ's honor and glory, and it's going to involve opponents. The Christian should expect their faith in Christ to be opposed due to it treading on Satan's territory. Our good doctor begins with, if you are going to be used by God, He will take you through a number of experiences that are not meant for you personally at all. They are designed to make you useful in His hands and to enable you to understand what takes place in the lives of others. For the person used by God, there will be encounters with others which aren't meant for us, but for the ones we are meeting, so to share Christ with them. It's us being used by God in the lives of others and is to be expected. It may be with those whom we don't consider our type. Chambers says, because of this process, you will never be surprised by what comes your way. You say, oh, I can't deal with that person. Why can't you? We should never be surprised or overwhelmed with whom God crosses our path. For OC assures us God gave you sufficient opportunities to learn from Him about that problem. But you turned away, not heeding the lesson because it seemed foolish to spend your time that way. Don't consider it an oddity with whom God crosses your path, but use those encounters to grow in knowing more about people who are unlike you, but who need Jesus. In describing the suffering of Jesus, O.C. says they were not those of ordinary people. He suffered according to the will of God, having a different point of view of suffering from ours. It is only through our relationship with Jesus Christ that we can understand what God is after in His dealings with us. The sufferings for Christ's sake is only able to be understood by the Christian due to it being spiritual in nature. The unsaved person is the one inflicting it upon us, so certainly won't be able to see it. In speaking of the human nature that remains in the redeemed individual, O.C. says, when it comes to suffering, it is part of our Christian culture to want to know God's purpose beforehand. In the history of the Christian church, the tendency has been to avoid being identified with the sufferings of Jesus Christ. To not know what is going to happen is how we define faith. For if we knew what was ahead of us, then there would not be the need to depend on God, and likely we would have a greater desire to avoid it. O.C. explains, people have sought to carry out God's orders through a shortcut of their own. God's way is always the way of suffering, saying that the manner of people is to want to cut the chase and make immediate accomplishment and success rather than having to take the long road home, by which Christ intends us to walk. To look at a map of the 40-year wandering of the Jews in the Sinai desert before arriving at the Promised Land shows that there was a straight path they could have taken and saved a lot of time, but God had purpose for all that time they spent reaching their destination. Chambers asks, are we partakers of Christ's sufferings? Are we prepared for God to stamp out our personal ambitions? Are we prepared for God to destroy our individual decisions by supernaturally transforming them? It will mean not knowing why God is taking us that way, because knowing would make us spiritually proud. When we have committed our life to Him, never consider that God is allowing any time to waste time. We are taken through our personal Sinai deserts to accomplish His purpose, and that His will is done on earth as it is in heaven. Thanks for being here today. Now may God's grace and peace be ours as we seek to live our utmost for His highest. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks now. Bye.